if you've watched the last video, you know that I ran into a little problem with the cylinders. I never took a cylinder off a motorcycle engine before until last week. I bought this well-running bike because I didn't want to touch the engine. I just didn't dare to. But over time, I gained a lot more confidence, and now like tackling the pushrod tubes, for example, is something that I definitely dare to do. But I didn't expect to find more problems. I haven't even started to touch the pushrod tubes, and I just took a peek at the cylinder walls. And unfortunately, you can see that there's not much cross-hatching left. After doing some research, I noticed that it's actually very, very critical that I address this, even though it doesn't really fit into my timeline because I'm moving to the States in just a few days and the bike is still looking like that. But having enough cross-hatching left on the cylinder walls is very, very critical for your engine health. So there wasn't really a way around it, but I just didn't know how to do that. But fortunately, Nikhil has a friend who works in a specialized engine rebuild shop, and he offered to connect us. So yesterday, Nikhil came around and he helped me to first put the engine back in the frame. And while halfway in the frame, we noticed that for some reason it didn't really fit the way we wanted. So we had to take all of the covers off, definitely well prepared. But then we got it in, we pushed the engine mounts through, and the engine was back in the frame, which was a very, very big milestone. But I didn't really have time to process it or celebrate it too much, because we immediately went to work and took the cylinder heads and the cylinders off the bike. And then we had to go to the special engine shop, and that shop was amazing. They had so many nice tools. There were engines all around, and Nikhil's friend was super, super kind. He immediately went straight to work on the BMW cylinders. So the first thing he did was to take the piston out, measure the outside diameter of the piston and compare that to the inside diameter of the cylinder to determine whether we have too much play. Fortunately, it was still in the range, so I'm good on that end. But maybe at some point it's time for the 1000cc Siebenrock upgrade kit, because I actually didn't know that they have the certificate for the German officials, so you can actually run it legally, which is very, very nice. But we still had a few other things to address. The next thing that he did was have a look at the valves, and he basically had a tool that created a vacuum so he could check how tight the valves still sealed. One was a little bit weak, so he took all of them apart with this hydraulic press. He compressed the spring, took the little clips out, and then he could take the valves out. Once those were out, he cleaned those up, cleaned the cylinder head, and then he went ahead and reground the valves into their seat. For that, he used some kind of grinding paste and basically a little plunger, and then he just twisted the valves in their seat. Afterwards, he cleaned everything very thoroughly, so there's no abrasive inside the engine. And then we had the valves done. So the last thing that we had to do was to re-hone the cylinder, and for that he used this special type of brush which he put in the cordless drill, and then he went in and out of the oiled cylinder to create this cross-hatching on the cylinder wall. Afterwards, he said it's very, very important that you properly clean the cylinder walls, and he even said that it can happen that if you get a new cylinder, that they just run it through a washing machine, which doesn't get rid of all of the particles that sit inside the groove. So he said if you get a new cylinder, it makes sense to clean it out with engine oil and just double check if it's actually clean, because it will drastically prolong the life of your cylinder to not have abrasive particles in there. So yeah, as you can see, we had a very successful Tuesday evening, and fortunately I got all of the tasks sorted out with Timo's help, obviously, which I'm very, very grateful for. We have freshly honed cylinders, cleaned valves and freshly ground valve seats, so that is all working perfectly. And I also went ahead and installed the new pushrod tubes, but I'm going to show you that in next week's video. And watching Timo work was an absolute pleasure, because I'm getting to a place where I'm losing my fear of working with engines, and I'm more excited to get into rebuilding engines and working on engines, and maybe at some point tuning engines. So I can't wait to properly get into that topic. It definitely helps that he has done it quite a few times, so he could take this apart probably blindfolded. But yeah, that was a very, very nice experience. So now with all of those tasks done, I can finally go ahead and put everything back on the bike. So then the engine is almost complete. I have one last task that I need to do, which is exchange the leaking oil pan seal, but that shouldn't be too big of a problem. Who knows? I hope you enjoyed this video, and if you want to watch another one, I'm going to link you one right here. As always, thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.